Today we're going to be using the SOS Explorer mobile app to tell you just how great Earth is. And to do that, I'm here with Hilary, and we're going to use Mars and Venus for comparison to point out some of the really great things about Earth. So let's start with Earth. Hilary, why is Earth so great?
Earth is amazing for one really particular reason, which is we're the only planet that we know of anywhere that has water in the liquid form. So you can see the clouds here on Earth. And one of the most amazing things about our planet is that we can cycle water. So simply, our weather, our atmosphere is able to basically draw up water and then deposit it on the planet. So it's really amazing. Actually, Beth, did you know that clouds are actually liquid water?
Yeah, lots of tiny little droplets collected together. That water vapor condenses into little cloud droplets. They come together to form rain droplets. It's an amazing thing. The water cycle really does set us apart from other planets.
There are a lot of other amazing things about us. Just our tilt is really nice. The amount the way that we go around the sun. So our revolution is pretty circular. So we have kind of a evenness of the seasons. And the tilt really gives a lot of places the ability to get a lot of sunlight throughout the year. But we're really going to focus on water and atmosphere and temperature, I think.
Yes, exactly. So if we jump to Mars, there are ice caps on Mars, but they're frozen and they're not all water. Mostly CO2, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's mostly carbon dioxide or dry ice, as we know of it on our planet for our Halloween parties. Um, yeah, so Mars and Venus and Earth are all actually within what we call the habitable zone. Beth, can you explain the habitable zone?
Yeah, so the habitable zone is the area where we're not too close, that we're crazy hot, and we're not too far from the sun, so that we're not warm enough. So it's this special distance, this zone where we think there is a chance for life on Earth given the temperatures that could exist. Now, as we'll talk about, the temperatures on Mars and Venus aren't great. So even though they're in that zone, their atmospheres aren't helping them out in that department. So it's this area where we think life could exist.
Right. Or water in its liquid form could also exist, which is probably one of the more important things we know of on our planet for life. That and at least here now oxygen, but we did have life before oxygen, right?
Right. So on Mars, what's the deal with Mars? It's in the habitable zone. We've already said the it's frozen. What else is wrong with Mars?
So Mars, we can tell that it had water. There are actually a lot of really interesting features on Mars. And Beth, you're gonna have to help me because I can't always remember. I know that the Big Canyon, let's just start with Valley Marineris. This they think was actually kind of a crack in the surface from an eruption of
Right.
the tallest mountain in the solar system, which is Olympus Mons. So they think this mountain volcano caused this crack. Um, but we do know that Mars at one point did have running water. At least it appears to. But we know that it doesn't now because the temperature is not so good for water. The
Well, in the
temperature and atmosphere, right? The amount of atmosphere.
Right. So the atmosphere on Mars is only 1/200th of the atmosphere that's on Earth. So any liquid water would just evaporate out um, into space, likely. And that is one of the questions. If there were oceans on Mars, where did they go? And evaporation is one option.
Yeah. Right. So you need an atmosphere to hold the heat in, but you also need the atmosphere to let heat out, right?
Yeah.
So we know that Mars is actually has too small of an atmosphere, which makes the temperature swings between day and night really massive.
Yeah.
But then we go to the other extreme. And Beth, what are the temperature extremes on Mars? Just
So
before we start.
Mars, the temperature can go from negative 200 to 75 Fahrenheit. So 75 Fahrenheit's really a nice temperature, but negative 200 is not nice. And that's a big swing. So if we think about Earth, average temperature probably is around 60 degrees on Earth. And maybe day to night you get, I don't know, let's say a 20, 30 degree change. Maybe in drier areas you can get an even bigger change, but certainly not that 200 plus range that we're looking at on Mars. And that's due to the lack of an atmosphere. Now, Venus is going to be the opposite case. Tell us about the atmosphere on Venus.
We like to use the Goldilocks scenario with respect to the climate on Earth versus the climate on Venus and the climate in Mars. And Goldilocks, if you're not familiar with it, is a story about a girl who wanders into a home of some bears, and she's trying their porridge, which is, what is porridge? Is it
It's like
oatmeal or is it grits?
oatmeal.
Anyway, and she tries it and she says, "Oh, this one's too hot. This one's too cold. This one's just right." So we consider Mars too cold, Venus too hot, and Earth the Goldilocks planet or just right. So Venus is actually has a really thick atmosphere. So Venus's atmosphere is something like 92 times the atmospheric pressure that we have here on Earth. And we think, at least this is the number I've heard, 25,000 times more carbon dioxide in Venus's atmosphere than Earth.
Which we know carbon dioxide leads to the greenhouse gas effect. So Venus is an example of a planet where CO2 is way too high. So the greenhouse effect is going crazy there. What that means is lots of all that sunlight's coming in and then it can't get out. And as a result, the temperature is really warm. What's the average temperature on Venus?
It swings between 700 and 900 degrees Fahrenheit.
Way too hot.
Way too hot. And the reason Venus kind of looks a little funny on these data sets is that if we actually showed you a picture of what Venus looks like from a satellite, if we were to send a spacecraft by and just snap some shots of it, it would just look like clouds because we can't really see through the clouds of Venus. So what this is was a spacecraft that was able to take radar, I guess what would you call that? Radar data sort of images of its surface. And so the brighter means this is rougher terrain, and the darker means smoother terrain.
Yeah, and that's the only way we can see the surface is to use something like radar. There's no way you can use a visible satellite like what we use on Earth to see the surface because, as you said, the clouds are always covering the surface. There's never a sunny day on Venus.
So we also have, I believe, we have some exoplanet stuff on the app as well. And just for fun, we do have some telescopes and some spacecraft out there in space looking, trying to find other planets that might be Earth-like. And basically what we found is, well, we can see shadows across stars. We don't really know what other planets are like, but so far we really think that we are the only planet anywhere near us that can sustain at least this amount of life.
Which is part of why we want to we want to be stewards of our Earth because it's such a special place. We have liquid water, we have an atmosphere with air to breathe at a comfortable pressure level, we have temperatures that are nice with a really comfortable day to night swing. It really is a unique and beautiful place that we live.
Absolutely. So we hope you liked this, and we hope you can convince your friends and your family to be good stewards of the earth, because there is no plan B, right, for our planet. So let's take good care of it.
That's right. Thank you guys.
Bye.